Marcus Allen was known in his town for his calm and thoughtful nature. He had grown up in the same neighborhood where everyone knew each other, and he had always tried to make things better for the people around him. As a young man, he had joined the police force not just to enforce rules, but because he wanted to bring fairness and honesty to a system that often ignored the voices of ordinary people. Over the years, Marcus had worked his way up, earning respect for his fairness, courage, and commitment to doing what was right. Recently, he had received news that he had been appointed the new police chief, a position that carried both power and responsibility. He felt proud, but he also knew the challenge he faced. The city needed leadership that could unite the community and the police force. One bright morning, Marcus decided to take a drive to clear his mind before starting his first week as chief. He drove his old but well-maintained black Jeep, a vehicle he had owned for years. It was more than a car to him. It represented freedom, independence, and his hard work. He loved the way it handled corners, the solid feel of the engine, and the memories he associated with every mile he had driven. That morning, the streets were quiet, and Marcus enjoyed the simple pleasure of the sun on his face as he drove through familiar neighborhoods. As he turned a corner, he noticed a small group of police officers parked by the side of the road. Marcus recognized some of them. They were known in the department for their aggressive behavior and lack of respect for the community. Marcus slowed down slightly to greet them, but instead of nods or smiles, he was met with smirks and whispers. One of the younger officers, clearly looking for attention, stepped forward and waved. Marcus waved back politely, keeping his focus on the road. Without warning, the officer approached Marcus's Jeep with an exaggerated show of authority. "Hey, Allen," the officer shouted. Marcus turned slightly, surprised that someone knew him, but before he could react, the officer grabbed the door of his Jeep. "We need to check your car," the officer said. Though there was no explanation or reason, Marcus's heart sank. He knew that this was not a random act. It was deliberate. These officers had always enjoyed showing power over others, especially when they thought no one important was watching. Marcus remained calm. "I'm happy to cooperate, but can you explain why?" he asked politely. The officer laughed. "You don't need to know. Step aside, this is for fun." He then motioned for another officer to help push the Jeep off the road. Marcus's jaw tightened. The vehicle he loved, which he had cared for every year, was being treated like a toy. The officers laughed as they bumped and nudged the Jeep, clearly enjoying the chaos. But Marcus did not panic or react angrily. He took out his phone and calmly started recording the scene. He knew that this behavior was unacceptable and that evidence was important. He also made a mental note of the officers' names. The Jeep had scratches and small dents by the time they finished, but Marcus remained composed. He thanked them for their cooperation in a tone that sounded polite, but carried a subtle warning. After the officers walked away, Marcus sat in his Jeep for a moment, taking a deep breath. His first instinct was frustration, but then he reminded himself of the position he now held. He was going to be the police chief, the person in charge. He had the authority and the responsibility to correct behavior like this, not with anger, but with fairness and justice. He started the Jeep and drove to the police department, already planning the steps he would take to address this kind of misconduct. At the station, Marcus was greeted by his new team. Some were excited, others were cautious, and a few were skeptical about his ability to lead change. Marcus knew that gaining trust was not something that happened overnight. "Good morning, everyone," he said warmly. "I know change is not easy, but our job is to serve the community with fairness, respect, and integrity. That is my promise to all of you and to the people we protect." His words were simple, but they carried weight. People could see that he meant them. Marcus spent the next few hours reviewing reports and getting briefed on ongoing cases. He was meticulous, asking questions that others often overlooked. When he came across complaints about officers who had misused their power, he made a note to investigate them personally. He understood that leadership was not about showing strength by force. It was about ensuring that the law was applied fairly and that accountability was maintained. Meanwhile, the news of the Jeep incident began to spread quietly through the department. Some officers laughed, thinking it was just another story about Marcus being treated like anyone else. Others, who respected Marcus, were concerned. Marcus did not publicly announce what had happened. He wanted to handle it with evidence and procedure. The phone recording he had made would speak for itself when the time came. Later that day, Marcus met with a community group that had often raised concerns about police behavior. He listened carefully as residents shared stories of unfair treatment, fear, and frustration. Marcus did not interrupt. He took notes and asked questions, showing genuine interest in understanding their experiences. When the meeting ended, he made a promise that the department would improve. "We will hold ourselves accountable, and we will treat everyone with respect. Our goal is safety and fairness, not fear or intimidation," he said. The residents left feeling hopeful, sensing that something meaningful might change. As the evening approached, Marcus returned to his Jeep. He inspected the scratches and dents one more time, not with anger, but with a sense of determination. This Jeep represented more than just a vehicle. It was a symbol of resilience. Just as the Jeep had endured rough treatment, Marcus knew that his leadership would face challenges. But he also knew that he had the power to correct wrongs and to set a new standard for behavior in his department. That night, Marcus reviewed the department's policies on misconduct and public interaction. He drafted plans for training sessions, accountability checks, and community engagement. He thought about the officers who had damaged his Jeep. Their actions were reckless and unprofessional, and he would address them in a way that was fair, thorough, and firm. Marcus believed in justice, and justice did not mean revenge. It meant following the law, applying it equally, and showing that behavior that undermined trust would not be tolerated. As he turned off the lights in his office, Marcus reflected on the day. It had started with a small act of disrespect, yet it had reminded him why he had worked so hard to reach this position. Leadership was about more than authority. It was about responsibility. Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that he was ready to face the challenges ahead. He understood that change would take time, but he also knew that fairness and courage could transform a community. Before leaving, Marcus placed a small note on his desk. It read, "Lead with respect, act with fairness, and always protect what is right." He smiled at the words. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new moments where he could make a difference. For now, he drove home in his Jeep, careful and steady, feeling the quiet power of knowing that he was in the right place to do what mattered most. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the police station early. The sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the rows of desks and busy officers moving about. Marcus felt a mix of anticipation and determination. Today, he would start taking steps to address the incident with his Jeep, and he also wanted to set the tone for his leadership. He knew that starting with fairness, transparency, and careful planning would make a difference. Marcus first called a meeting with the internal affairs team. They were responsible for investigating complaints and misconduct within the department. Marcus explained the situation calmly, recounting the incident with his Jeep and providing the recording he had taken. He stressed that this was not about personal revenge, but about enforcing rules and ensuring accountability. The team nodded, recognizing the seriousness of the case. Chief Allen, one of the investigators, said, "We will start by reviewing the video, identifying the officers, and collecting any other evidence we can find. This will be thorough, and we will handle it professionally," Marcus agreed. He knew that evidence and procedure were crucial. Acting impulsively could undermine his authority. "I want this investigation to be clear, fair, and transparent. Everyone involved must be held accountable according to the rules. This will show the community and the department that misconduct is not acceptable," he said. After the meeting, Marcus walked through the station. Officers greeted him respectfully, and a few came up to speak. Some were curious about how he would handle tough situations, and others were quietly skeptical. Marcus understood that change would not happen overnight. He needed to gain the trust of both the community and his own team. Later, Marcus met with the officers who were responsible for the Jeep incident. They had been called to the office, their expressions a mix of confusion and defensiveness. Marcus remained calm as he addressed them. "I understand that mistakes happen, but what occurred yesterday was unprofessional. You put personal amusement above your duty. That behavior cannot continue in this department." One officer tried to speak up, saying, "It was just a joke. We didn't mean any harm." Marcus looked at him steadily. "Intentions matter, but actions matter more. Your actions caused damage to property, disrespected a fellow officer, and showed poor judgment. You must understand the consequences of your choices." The officers listened quietly as Marcus explained that the department had rules and codes of conduct, and that violating them had consequences. He reminded them that police officers were held to high standards because the community trusted them to act with integrity. The officers nodded, some with relief that Marcus was not angry or vengeful, and others with concern about what would happen next. Marcus also emphasized the positive side of learning from mistakes. This is not just about punishment. It is about understanding the importance of respect, responsibility, and accountability. You have an opportunity to learn and improve. That is what leadership is for. After the meeting, Marcus returned to his office and reviewed training materials for the department. He made notes for workshops on professionalism, community relations, and ethical decision-making. He wanted officers to understand that being a police officer was more than wearing a uniform. It was about service, respect, and fairness. Meanwhile, news about the incident began to circulate quietly within the department. Some officers whispered, some laughed, and some watched Marcus with interest. His calm but firm approach earned quiet respect. They realized that Marcus would not tolerate careless or reckless behavior, but he also believed in guiding officers toward improvement rather than simply punishing them. Marcus decided to take another step. He contacted a few community leaders to inform them that he was aware of misconduct within the department and that he was personally overseeing an investigation. He wanted to be open and honest with the public. The community had long felt that complaints were ignored, and Marcus wanted to change that perception. One of the leaders, Mrs. Thompson, a longtime advocate for community safety, was cautious. "Chief Allen, we appreciate your honesty, but the community has been let down many times before. How will this be different?" Marcus replied, "I understand your concerns. My approach will be clear, fair, and accountable. The goal is to restore trust and show that the department can be professional and just. We will act on evidence, follow procedures, and ensure that all actions are transparent." Mrs. Thompson nodded slowly, encouraged by Marcus's sincerity. "We will watch closely, but this is a good start. Thank you for taking this seriously." As the day went on, Marcus continued reviewing reports and planning community meetings. He believed that leadership was not only about correcting mistakes, but also about setting a vision for the future. He wanted a department where officers respected one another. The community felt safe, and fairness guided every decision. In the late afternoon, Marcus received the first preliminary report from Internal Affairs. The video clearly showed the officers pushing the Jeep and acting recklessly. The report also included eyewitness accounts from neighbors who had seen the incident. Marcus read carefully, taking notes and preparing his next steps. He called the officers back to his office. "I have reviewed the evidence," he said calmly. "The actions shown are unacceptable. You will face formal consequences, but you will also attend mandatory training. This will include lessons on professionalism, ethics, and how to interact respectfully with colleagues and the public." The officers listened silently. One of them spoke softly. "Chief, we understand. We will learn from this." Marcus nodded. "Learning is good, but respect and accountability are not optional. Remember that." Afterward, Marcus drafted a memo for the entire department, emphasizing that the standards of conduct were clear and that everyone, regardless of rank or experience, would be held accountable. He wanted to set the tone immediately. Leadership required clarity and consistency, and he intended to provide both. By evening, Marcus drove his Jeep home again, reflecting on the day. He felt a sense of purpose and determination. The incident had been a challenge, but it also gave him an opportunity to demonstrate the kind of leadership he believed in: fair, calm, and effective. He knew that earning trust took time, but he was willing to invest the effort. That night, Marcus made another note in his journal. It read, "True leadership is not about power. It is about responsibility, fairness, and courage. We must act with integrity in every situation." He closed the journal and felt a quiet satisfaction. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he was ready. He knew that the journey ahead required patience, wisdom, and unwavering commitment to doing what was right. Marcus also thought about the community. He knew that many residents had experienced fear, frustration, or mistrust regarding law enforcement. His goal was to change that. By addressing misconduct firmly and fairly, and by engaging openly with the community, He hoped to show that police officers could be both professional and compassionate. Before sleeping, Marcus reviewed the recording of the Jeep incident once more. It reminded him that leadership sometimes began with small but meaningful actions. By acting carefully, documenting the event, and planning his response thoughtfully, he had taken the first step toward building a culture of accountability in the department. As he turned off the lights, Marcus felt a strong sense of determination. He was not just the police chief by title. He was a leader by choice. The challenges ahead would test his patience and resolve, but he was prepared to face them. Justice, fairness, and respect would guide every decision he made. And the incident with the Jeep, though frustrating, had become the first test of the leadership he was ready to demonstrate. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the police station with a sense of focus and purpose. Today, he planned to take another step forward in improving the department and building trust with the community. He understood that leadership was not only about handling internal issues, but also about engaging openly with the people the police were sworn to serve. Marcus called a meeting with the department's community outreach team. They had been responsible for organizing programs, safety workshops, and public events to connect officers with residents. Marcus explained the recent incident with his Jeep, emphasizing that it was a teaching moment as well as an opportunity to strengthen the department's values. Today, we begin a new approach, Marcus said. We will increase communication, transparency, and accountability. The community needs to see that we are responsible and fair. This is not about blame alone. It is about improvement and trust. The team nodded, motivated by Marcus's calm and thoughtful approach. They understood that this was a chance to set a new standard for how the department operated. Marcus asked them to plan a community meeting where residents could share concerns, ask questions, and feel heard. He also emphasized that officers attending the meeting should be trained to respond respectfully and professionally. While the outreach team worked on the plans, Marcus reviewed the internal affairs report one more time. The evidence against the officers involved in the Jeep incident was clear, but Marcus wanted to ensure that every step of the process was fair. He believed that justice required both accountability and opportunity for growth. Marcus made a plan to meet with each officer individually to discuss their actions, their understanding of professionalism, and how they could improve moving forward. Later that morning, Marcus walked through the station, greeting officers and offering encouragement. Some nodded respectfully while others observed quietly. He knew that building trust among his team would take time, but small gestures of attention and fairness went a long way. Leadership, Marcus believed, was earned through consistency and care, not authority alone. Meanwhile, the officers involved in the Jeep incident were preparing for their individual meetings with Marcus. Some felt nervous, unsure of what consequences awaited them, while others reflected on their actions and realized the seriousness of the situation. Marcus welcomed each officer with calm professionalism. "Thank you for meeting with me," Marcus began with the first officer. "I want to understand your perspective and help you learn from this situation." The officer explained that it had been a moment of poor judgment and that they did not consider the consequences of their actions. Marcus listened carefully. "You must understand," Marcus said, "that being a police officer means making decisions that affect the community and your colleagues. Mistakes can happen, but we must always act with respect and responsibility. This is your opportunity to demonstrate growth and understanding." The conversation continued with guidance, training plans, and clear expectations. Marcus emphasized that learning from mistakes was part of professional development, and that accountability was not punishment alone, but a path to becoming a better officer. By the time the meetings concluded, the officers had a clear understanding of their responsibilities and the importance of professionalism. As the day progressed, Marcus turned his attention to the upcoming community meeting. He prepared notes, questions, and strategies to ensure that residents felt heard and respected. He also instructed officers to approach the meeting with patience and empathy, understanding that building trust required humility and careful listening. In the afternoon, Marcus arrived at a local community center where the meeting was to take place. Chairs were arranged in rows and residents began arriving, curious to see the new police chief in action. Marcus greeted each person warmly, shaking hands and listening briefly to their concerns before the meeting started. When the meeting began, Marcus spoke first. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "I am Marcus Allen, the new police chief. I am here to listen, learn, and work with you to ensure our community is safe, respected, and treated fairly. I believe that communication and accountability are essential, and I hope that today we can begin a dialogue that strengthens trust between the police and the people we serve." The residents responded with cautious optimism. Many shared stories of experiences where they felt unheard or treated unfairly. Marcus listened attentively, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. His calm demeanor reassured the residents, and some even expressed relief that the new chief was willing to address issues openly. One resident spoke up about concerns regarding officers who sometimes acted recklessly or without accountability. Marcus acknowledged the concern and explained the steps he was taking to address misconduct, including the investigation into the Jeep incident. "We are committed to holding ourselves accountable," Marcus said. "Fairness, respect, and transparency are priorities. Every complaint will be taken seriously and investigated thoroughly." The meeting continued with discussions about safety, communication, and ways to improve the relationship between the department and the community. Marcus encouraged ideas and input, emphasizing that collaboration was essential for creating a safe and just environment. The residents left feeling hopeful, sensing that the department was willing to change for the better. After the meeting, Marcus returned to the station, feeling satisfied with the progress made. He reviewed plans for additional training workshops for officers, focusing on professionalism, communication, and ethical decision-making. Marcus believed that consistent education and reinforcement of values would help prevent incidents like the one with his Jeep from happening again. That evening, Marcus received messages from some of the officers who had attended the community meeting. They expressed appreciation for his guidance and the chance to learn from the situation. Marcus replied with encouragement, reinforcing the importance of growth, responsibility, and service. He believed that positive reinforcement could be as powerful as correction when shaping behavior. The next day, Marcus continued implementing changes within the department. He met with team leaders, discussed new protocols, and emphasized the importance of accountability. He also planned additional community events where residents could interact with officers in informal settings, building trust and understanding. Marcus's approach began to show results. Officers became more mindful of their behavior, knowing that their actions were being observed and evaluated fairly. The community noticed the change as well, appreciating the new chief's transparency and willingness to listen. Slowly, respect and trust started to grow on both sides. One afternoon, Marcus received a call from Mrs. Thompson, the community leader he had met earlier. "Chief Allen," she said, "I want to thank you for listening and taking action. The residents are noticing a difference. We feel that the department is finally taking responsibility for its actions." Marcus smiled. "Thank you for your support. It is a team effort, and we are committed to continuous improvement. We will continue working together to ensure fairness, safety, and respect." As the day ended, Marcus walked through the empty station, reflecting on the progress made. He knew that leadership was a long-term commitment, requiring patience, consistency, and a clear vision. The Jeep incident had been an unexpected challenge, but it had also provided an opportunity to demonstrate his values and set a positive example for the department. Before leaving, Marcus reviewed notes from the community meeting and drafted plans for further training and engagement. He felt a strong sense of purpose and responsibility. His vision was clear: a department that acted with integrity, respected the community, and held itself accountable for every action. As Marcus drove his Jeep home that evening, he felt a quiet sense of pride. The vehicle, still showing the scratches and dents from the previous week, reminded him that challenges were opportunities for growth. Just as the Jeep had endured, the department and the community could endure and improve through careful guidance and fairness. That night, Marcus added another note to his journal. Leadership is about patience, fairness, and listening. Every challenge is an opportunity to show integrity and create positive change. He closed the journal, feeling confident in the path he had chosen. The journey ahead would not be easy, but he was prepared to face it with calm determination and unwavering commitment to justice. Marcus knew that the true test of his leadership was just beginning. The department would face difficult situations and the community would continue to present challenges and concerns. But with transparency, fairness, and respect guiding every decision, Marcus was confident that he could lead both the police and the community toward a better future. The morning sun rose over the city as Marcus Allen arrived at the police station. Today was important. He had already taken steps to address misconduct and build trust with the community. But now it was time to focus on enforcing accountability within the department. Leadership, Marcus knew, was not only about vision and communication, but also about ensuring that rules were followed and lessons were learned. Marcus first reviewed the internal affairs report again, making sure he fully understood every detail. The officers involved in the Jeep incident had been cooperative during the initial meetings, but Marcus knew that understanding their mistakes and facing formal consequences were equally important. He believed that consistency and discipline was a key part of building a department that acted with fairness and professionalism. He called a meeting with the officers directly involved. "Good morning," Marcus said calmly. "Today we will review the outcome of the investigation. This is an opportunity to understand the impact of your actions and take the next steps toward professional growth." The officers entered, some nervous, others quiet and reflective. Marcus began by showing the evidence clearly and without judgment. He explained how their behavior had violated department policies, disrespected a colleague, and could have damaged public trust. He emphasized that their actions, while regrettable, could become a lesson for improvement. "I want to make it clear," Marcus said firmly, "that misconduct will not be ignored. We are all accountable for our actions, and this department will maintain high standards. At the same time, you have an opportunity to learn, grow, and demonstrate professionalism." Marcus outlined the consequences. Each officer would receive a formal written reprimand in their personnel file. They would also complete mandatory training focused on professionalism, ethics, and community interaction. Marcus stressed that the purpose was not punishment alone, but education and development. One officer spoke hesitantly. "Chief Allen, I understand what happened. I see now how careless we were. We will do the training and take responsibility." Marcus nodded. "Acknowledging your mistakes is the first step. Learning from them is what will make you stronger officers. Remember, respect and fairness are not optional. They are essential." After addressing the officers, Marcus drafted a clear memo to the entire department. He emphasized that accountability applied to everyone, regardless of rank or experience. The memo outlined the incident, the steps taken, and the expectations moving forward. Marcus wanted the department to understand that professionalism, respect, and integrity were the foundation of their work. Once the internal matters were addressed, Marcus turned his attention to the community. He wanted to ensure that residents were aware of the steps being taken and that their concerns were being addressed sincerely. Marcus contacted Mrs. Thompson and other community leaders to invite them to a public meeting. He believed that transparency was crucial in rebuilding trust. The community meeting was held at a local recreation center. Residents arrived, some curious, some cautious, but all eager to see how the new police chief would handle the situation. Marcus greeted everyone warmly. He spoke openly about the recent misconduct, the steps taken to address it, and the department's commitment to fairness and accountability. "I want you to know that we are committed to professional conduct," Marcus said. "We will hold ourselves accountable, and we will continue to improve our relationship with the community. Your trust is earned through actions, not words alone, and we are determined to act responsibly." The residents asked questions, raised concerns, and shared their experiences. Marcus listened carefully, responding thoughtfully and respectfully. He acknowledged the past mistakes, explained the corrective actions, and reassured them that such incidents would not be ignored. By the end of the meeting, the community left feeling respected and heard. Many expressed hope that the department was on a path of positive change. Back at the station, Marcus began planning ongoing training programs and initiatives for officers. He wanted to ensure that accountability and professional development became part of the department's culture. Workshops, mentorship programs, and regular evaluations were put into place to maintain high standards. Marcus believed that consistency, reinforcement, and leadership by example would create a stronger, more ethical police force. In the following days, Marcus continued his work, observing how officers interacted with each other and with the community. He noticed small but significant changes. Officers were more careful in their actions, more respectful in their communication, and more conscious of their responsibility to serve the public fairly. Marcus saw these changes not just as compliance but as evidence that culture could shift when leadership was fair, consistent, and thoughtful. One afternoon, Marcus received a call from the city mayor. "Chief Allen," the mayor said, "I've heard about the steps you are taking. The community is noticing and morale in the department is improving. How are you managing this change?" Marcus replied confidently, "It's about clear expectations, consistent accountability, and active engagement with the community. Leadership requires patience and integrity. We are building trust step by step, and I am confident that the department will continue to improve." The mayor responded positively, "Your approach is making a real difference. Keep up the good work." Marcus thanked the mayor and reflected on the progress made. The challenges were not gone, but the department was moving in the right direction. That evening, Marcus reviewed the Jeep incident again. It was more than just a personal event. It had become a catalyst for change. The officers involved had learned important lessons. The department was implementing new standards, and the community was beginning to feel heard. Marcus understood that leadership often began with small but meaningful actions. A single event could lead to broader improvement when handled thoughtfully. He also spent time planning future community outreach events. Marcus believed that ongoing dialogue with residents was essential for trust and accountability. Workshops on safety, meetings with neighborhood groups, and open forums would become regular parts of the department's operations. Marcus knew that consistent engagement would reinforce the changes and help prevent misconduct from occurring again. As Marcus walked through the quiet station late in the evening, he felt a deep sense of purpose. Leadership required courage, patience, and fairness. Today, he had taken important steps to enforce accountability while maintaining respect for his team and the community. He understood that building a positive culture would take time, but the foundation was being laid. Before leaving, Marcus wrote in his journal, "Leadership is not just about authority. It is about responsibility, fairness, and building trust. Every action we take sets an example. Accountability and professionalism must guide every decision." He closed the journal and felt confident that the department was on the right path. That night, Marcus drove home in his Jeep. The scratches and dents from the previous incident were still visible, but they no longer frustrated him. Instead, they reminded him of how a single event could create an opportunity for improvement. Just as the Jeep had endured, so could the department and the community endure challenges and grow stronger together. Marcus parked his Jeep, took a moment to reflect, and smiled. The journey was ongoing, but progress was being made. Fairness, accountability, and respect were guiding principles, and he was determined to ensure that they remained at the center of every decision. Leadership, he realized, was not a destination but a continuous effort, shaped by integrity, courage, and the desire to do what was right. With a clear vision and a steady resolve, Marcus Allen prepared to face the days ahead. The challenges would continue, but he was ready. He had proven that fairness and accountability could create meaningful change, and he was committed to leading the department with integrity, guiding officers to professional excellence, and building lasting trust with the community. The sun rose gently over the city, casting a warm glow on the streets and buildings. Marcus Allen arrived at the police station feeling a quiet sense of satisfaction. The past few weeks had been challenging, but the changes he had implemented were already showing results. Officers were more mindful of their behavior, and the community was beginning to see the department as a fair and responsible force. Marcus knew that true leadership was measured not by titles or authority, but by the trust and respect earned through consistent, thoughtful action. That morning, Marcus scheduled a final review meeting with the officers who had been involved in the Jeep incident. The goal was not only to ensure that lessons had been learned, but also to help the officers embrace the values of professionalism and integrity that Marcus wanted to establish throughout the department. "Good morning," Marcus said as the officers entered. "We have been working together to correct mistakes and improve our standards. Today, I want to review what we have learned and discuss how you can continue to grow as officers." The officers listened attentively. Some were still a little nervous, but others appeared confident, having reflected on their behavior and the guidance Marcus had provided. He showed them the evidence once more, not to punish but to highlight what had gone wrong and what could be done differently in the future. Accountability is essential, Marcus explained. Every action you take affects the community and your colleagues. Mistakes can happen, but the way we respond to them defines our character. You now have the knowledge, training, and experience to act responsibly and lead by example. One officer spoke softly. Chief Allen, thank you for showing us the right way to handle mistakes. We understand now and we will do better. Marcus smiled. That is exactly what I want to hear. Growth and improvement are signs of strength, not weakness. Remember that every decision you make reflects on you and the department. After the meeting, Marcus drafted a final report summarizing the incident, the investigation, and the actions taken. He included recommendations for ongoing training, mentorship programs, and ways to maintain accountability within the department. The report was clear, fair, and comprehensive, serving as both a record and a guide for future leadership. Later that afternoon, Marcus hosted another community meeting at the local recreation center. This meeting was different from the first. Residents had seen the department take action, and they were eager to hear updates and share their thoughts on progress. Marcus began by acknowledging the community's patience and support. Thank you all for coming today, Marcus said. Over the past few weeks, we have taken important steps to ensure that our department acts with fairness, integrity, and professionalism. We have addressed misconduct, implemented new training programs, and increased our engagement with the community. I am here to listen and learn from you as well. Residents asked questions, offered suggestions, and shared their experiences. Marcus listened carefully, responding with respect and thoughtfulness. He emphasized that the department's work was ongoing and that community input was vital in maintaining trust and accountability. By the end of the meeting, many residents expressed gratitude for Marcus's honesty, leadership, and dedication to fairness. As Marcus returned to the station, he reflected on the journey so far. The Jeep incident had started as a frustrating and unfair situation, but it had become a catalyst for meaningful change. The officers involved had learned important lessons, the department had implemented stronger standards, and the community had begun to feel heard and respected. Marcus realized that challenges, when handled thoughtfully, could create opportunities for growth and improvement. That evening, Marcus walked through the station, observing officers as they worked and interacted with each other. He noticed small changes that indicated a shift in culture. Officers were more professional, collaborative, and mindful of their responsibilities. Marcus understood that building a positive culture required patience, consistency, and clear expectations, and he felt proud of the progress made so far. Marcus also took time to speak individually with officers who had not been involved in the Jeep incident. He praised their dedication, encouraged their growth, and reminded them that every action mattered. By recognizing positive behavior and providing guidance, Marcus reinforced the standards he wanted the department to uphold. Leadership, he believed, was as much about encouragement and mentorship as it was about accountability. A few days later, Marcus received a call from the city mayor. Chief Allen, the mayor said, I have been hearing positive feedback from residents and officers alike. The department seems to be improving under your leadership. How are you managing this change? Marcus replied calmly. It is about fairness, consistency, and communication. We are holding ourselves accountable, listening to the community, and providing officers with guidance and support. Change does not happen overnight, but with patience and persistence, we can create a department that the community trusts and respects. The mayor responded with approval. I am impressed with your approach. Keep up the good work, Chief Allen. Marcus thanked the mayor and reflected on how far the department had come in just a few weeks. The journey had been challenging, but it was also rewarding. That evening, Marcus drove home in his Jeep. The scratches and dents from the earlier incident were still visible, but they no longer bothered him. Instead, they reminded him of resilience, growth, and the opportunity that had come from adversity. Just as the Jeep had endured, so had the department and so had the community. Marcus knew that leadership required patience, integrity, and courage, and he was committed to continuing that path. At home, Marcus reviewed his journal, reflecting on the lessons learned and the progress made. He wrote, Leadership is about fairness, integrity, and service. Every challenge is an opportunity to demonstrate values, build trust, and create positive change. Growth comes through accountability, reflection, and consistent action. The next day, Marcus arrived at the station ready to implement the next phase of his plan. Training programs, community workshops, and mentorship initiatives were scheduled to continue. Marcus believed that progress was not a single event but a continuous effort, and he was committed to maintaining momentum. Throughout the day, Marcus observed officers practicing communication skills, ethical decision-making, and teamwork. He provided guidance, encouragement, and feedback, ensuring that every officer understood the importance of professionalism and accountability. The department had become more cohesive, respectful, and focused on its mission to serve the community fairly. In the evening, Marcus visited the neighborhood where the Jeep incident had occurred. Residents recognized him and expressed appreciation for the changes they had seen. Marcus spoke with them, listened to their concerns, and reassured them that the department would continue to act with fairness and respect. The sense of trust and connection was growing stronger with each interaction. Returning to the station, Marcus reflected on the journey from the moment the Jeep had been damaged to the present day. What had begun as a frustrating and unfair situation had become an opportunity to transform the department, engage the community, and set a standard for professional conduct. Marcus understood that leadership was not about avoiding challenges, but about facing them with fairness, integrity, and patience. That night, Marcus drove home in his Jeep once more. The vehicle, though imperfect, symbolized resilience, perseverance, and growth. Marcus felt a quiet sense of fulfillment, knowing that he had guided the department toward a path of accountability, professionalism, and trust. The journey ahead would continue, but the foundation had been firmly established. Before going to bed, Marcus added a final note to his journal. Every challenge can become an opportunity. Leadership requires fairness, accountability, and courage. By acting with integrity and listening carefully, we can create lasting change. The work is ongoing, but the path is clear. As Marcus prepared to rest, he felt confident that the department, the officers, and the community were on a better path. The Jeep incident, once a moment of frustration, had become a turning point that demonstrated the power of calm, fair, and thoughtful leadership. Marcus Allen knew that his role as police chief was not about authority alone, but about responsibility, service, and building trust. The city, the department, and the community were watching and learning together. Marcus understood that leadership was a continuous journey, shaped by actions, decisions, and the courage to face challenges with fairness and integrity. The story of the Jeep incident had come full circle, transforming an act of thoughtlessness into a lesson in justice, accountability, and hope. Marcus closed his eyes, satisfied with the progress made and ready for the work ahead. The path would not always be easy, but with fairness, determination, and commitment, he knew the department and the community could continue to grow stronger together.